Guys, so today we'll be solving question number one of A-level CIE, May June 2024, paper two. Um, this first question, guys, is generally fairly straightforward. And one of the things that I believe you are already aware of, if you're not, that I'm just going to quickly show you, and then we'll refer to that as well, is that we need to be aware of the insert as well. For paper two, I mean, especially for question one and a lot of other places in paper two, a lot of other questions as well, you'll see that there is this insert given, which generally contains a set of functions, pre-written functions, pre-routines, subroutines that we can use in order to get something done. Now, without further ado, let's get started off with solving it. So the first question actually says that there are certain pseudocode examples, and each example is reference to a particular type of construct, selection, iteration, input, output. Remember, we have a few constructs in our programming part or pseudocode part. All right, so the first thing, it's clearly an iteration construct. The next thing, write file, is writing something. So we're getting an output, so it's going to be an input output one. Until level is greater than 25, what would that be? Think about it. Until level is again, of course, it's going to be something is going to happen based on a certain condition, which means it's selection. And then lastly, when I talk about this one, it says if mark is greater than 74, this is what? This is definitely selection. But you observe over here, it also says read file. So we're also taking a certain input. So this will qualify as an input construct as well. All right, now this is the question where we specifically need to just be careful about, question ones. They're generally easy. I don't really know why you should be losing a mark over there, but the truth of the matter is that, people do tend to lose marks over here just because of the fact that there's not enough attention to detail. Now, let's read through this. It says that my character is supposed to be a character, my string is a string, my int is an integer. Complete the table, filling each gap with a function from the insert so that each expression is valid. Now, I want to make sure, again, two things keep in mind. Number one, like I just mentioned earlier, we need to be aware of the insert. Generally, please be aware of the insert before the exam. It's not like you should go on and within the exam focus on the insert. Number two is that just remember that you have to sort of make the whole expression valid. Sometimes it might not make sense, but as long as it's valid, it's fine. Remember, it's kind of like, solving such questions in which, you have to move one matchstick just to make the expression valid. And that the logic doesn't really matter as long as the expression is valid. So it says my int. Now I know that my int is supposed to only store an integer, and I'm given 3.14, right? So I think the best thing that I can go back, and if I go back to my insert, I can clearly see that within these numeric functions, I have an int function, which basically converts a real number into an integer. So I can simply use that. And how do I know it's a real number? Because of course, 3.14145, this is a decimal number, which is essentially a real or a float. So I'm just going to straightforwardly use an int over here. All right. The next is it says my character Elwood 3 comma 1. Now, I think if you have pre-knowledge of this thing enough, I think it should be very easy for you to quickly go back and refer to the fact that there is a mid function that exists, which basically does what? That it takes a string, and you pass it a starting point and the number of integers you want, and it's going to return that to you. So over here, I will use mid. And what this is going to do, by the way, just for your knowledge, it's going to go to the third element and from there on pick one particular element. So in this case, it's going to go to the third element, which is going to be 1, 2, 3. So it's actually going to pick W. Just saying that my character, remember, can only store a character, so it will store W. My string, all right, now I want to make sure that whatever I get over here is a string. All right, so I think it's again very obvious from what we just did. This is a real number, a float. I can convert it into an integer using int. And then if I again, let me go back since this is a new function. Where is it? Yes, so I have this thing. I have this num2string function which basically casts, casts means that it changes one data type to another. So this is going to convert my number to a string. So I'm just going to go on and use it. And if you have a look at the marking scheme and other places as well in general, there are different combinations that exist, which can be used over here, by the way. It's not necessary you have to go with this one. Remember, like I said, as long as the expression makes sense. Um, Lastly, again, I'm supposed to get an integer. All right. And now let's think about it. It says ABC 1, 2, 3. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that whatever I'm storing is an integer, right? So out of this, I think it's very obvious that if I'm manipulating ABC 1, 2, 3, I need to pick up something from the last three. And again, it's based on pre-knowledge. You cannot do it just at the moment. You need to be aware of um, the insert while you're going on to do it. So I can clearly see that there's a function called write, which actually takes in a string and it returns back an integer. Sorry, it doesn't return back an integer, it returns back a string, but it basically returns back a string based on what integer value you've given. So in this case, if I, let's say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 3 returns F, G, H, so it returns the last three. So it basically starts counting from the rightmost. That's why it's called write. So I can easily use it over here. So I can say write. It's going to give me back A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 3. It's going to basically give me A, 1, 2, 3 back. And lastly, when I get this particular thing back, basically this is going to return to me 1, 2, 3, remember, which is a string because of course it's returning a string back, and I want to store an integer in mind. Since mind is an integer, I can convert it into str to num. I can use that function, and this is written exactly over here. Again, the note on this is you'll need to be aware of the insert beforehand. You cannot just, I don't know, go on and just do it just like that. Okay, so Part C says the variable in Part B are chosen during the design stage of the development life cycle. The choices are to document a simplified program interface, a way of documenting. All right, well, I believe you're aware of the whole SDLC, the software development life cycle, which has different stages. Now, in design stage, there are a lot of things that we end up doing, but one of the most obvious things that we do is that we want to make a table stating the name of each of my variables, the data type of it, and what it is supposed to do. Like, what is that variable supposed to do? And that is specifically called as an identifier table. Identifier table. And what it should include, it says that in addition to data type. So the data type is already mentioned, so I'm not going to talk about it. So I'll say that identifiable table, it will include the name of each identifier along with the purpose of each identifier, basically telling that what each identifier does. And just for your knowledge, is generally when I talk about an identifier, it's not just related to variables. I mean, this is something a bit extra according to this question, but whenever you're talking about an identifier, you just don't identifier don't only refer to variables. Identifier names are obviously for variables, and they are also for your functions and subroutines. So, I mean, subroutines, procedures, I mean, you can refer it to in any particular manner. So, the idea is that your identifier basically refers to all of these. So, I mean, I'm sure you would have heard this thing quite often saying that choose good identifier names. So, that's what it means.